know a lot of you, sometimes this is like the end of the day. You've had that wonderful lunch. You've come to this session. It's like almost the last. Is this the last session of Ignite? Or at least, no, there's probably one more, right? One more. But thank you for being here. And a lot of people, you're probably just in here to find a seat, right? And you're just like, I came in here to rest. But this is a discussion session. I love these sessions, I think, better than maybe any of the others, even the breakouts and demo sessions, because the intent of this session is to get feedback and questions. And so that these sessions are absolutely for you. You've heard a lot about co-pilots. We were talking about that a little bit earlier. All the co-pilots. Co-pilot craziness, I think I heard earlier today. This session is a little bit different. This one is about those organizations that are developing their own co-pilots or their own generative AI bots or whatever that you create in your organization, and how we secure those. I think this is, to me, is a really significant discussion that we want to have today. ChatGPT, for example, came out in November last year. That's when the new hotness came out, and everybody's like, oh, everybody and their CEO and everyone, they just wanted to use this because it's so cool. I can ask it what the weather's going to be on the weekend. It's going to tell me all of the camping gear that I need to take for the weekend. So I need to use this for business, all right? But at the same time, because it was so new, there weren't very many people thinking about the impact of using these from a security perspective, right? So a lot of organizations over the past year or so have started to develop their own because they do see the value in these things. But we want to have that discussion today and get your all's feedback and questions around what you're doing within your organization, or what potentially you might want to do in your organization, how we can give some recommendations and some content and some clarity potentially around what maybe you should do from a security perspective. Some of the things you need to look for, some of the things you need to look for in the code, the access, the data that's being utilized as part of these internal organization co-pilots, if you want to put it that way. So we want to have that discussion today. So let's get started here real quick. Also, this is a remote session, right? So we have people here in person. Sorry to the people remote. You need to be here next time. I promise. This is an amazing event. I've heard a lot of great comments. So please plan to come and be in person next time if you can. But this is a remote event, a hybrid thing. So we're going to try to monitor questions that come in over the Teams meeting, as well as the discussions that we have here in person. I'm Rod Trent. If you don't know me, I'm a senior program manager at Microsoft, focused on cybersecurity first and then AI. And I'm thinking that if you talk to anyone at Microsoft, they're going to say eventually that they're focused on AI, because we all are. But I've spent the last year with my good friend Richard Diver over here. We've been having these discussions about securing AI and trying to identify those things within organizations that they should be concerned about when their people, their users, and every different departments like HR and stuff like that are utilizing AI, and how how security affects that, right? So we want to have that discussion today. But anyway, I'm Rod Trent. I'm going to pass it over to my colleague.
Hello, I'm Andi Comisioneru. I am part of the Security Office of CTO in Microsoft. I'm in security for quite a while. I was part of the Defender antivirus team when we integrated cloud security into that. I was then part of Sentinel when we integrated cloud detections into that. And now I'm working on security for AI with the rest of my colleagues.
Hello, everyone. Thanks for being here. I'm Douglas Santos. I'm a senior product manager in the Microsoft Security Division, focus on customer experience. So I work a lot with customers. And I am specialized on Defender for Cloud Apps, which is one of the Microsoft Defender products that can be used to identify, discover, protect generative AI applications and other types of AI apps.
And we announce this week, in case
So-
somebody missed it.
Yeah, so there's been several announcements. to Defender for Cloud Apps specifically, we have a new. So Defender for Cloud Apps is a product that does a lot of things, and one of them is to help you discover cloud applications. In particular, our customers have been asking us, "Hey, I need to be able to understand the usage of generative AI apps in my organization." So the announcement was that we now have over 400 cloud applications that fit the category of generative AI. So that if you have Defender for Cloud Apps, you can use it to discover the usage, how many users are using, how much traffic and data is being sent through these cloud applications. So there is a specific category of applications that went public preview this week for generative AI apps. Thanks for asking.
Cool. Well, I just know those questions are going to come in, and I know we in case you missed it, there's a lot we have going on with Defender for Cloud Apps, and I think Purview as well.
And for the record, because I think we have to repeat the question for the recording. The question was, what was announced on Defender for Cloud Apps this week? And go watch Vasu and Charlie Bell's keynote session from this morning. There is a specific portion of the keynote that was talking about this announcement.
We had a lot of announcement this week. So hi, I'm Neta. Exciting week and exciting day. Neta, I'm Principal Program Manager working with Andi on the Office of CTO and Security for AI. Previously, most of my last years I was working on as a Group Product Manager in Azure OpenAI on your data and document intelligence. So developing applications with AI and bringing AI to the organizations. That's me.
That's it?
That's it.
You're so much more than that. But anyway. All right, so we've had some discussion kind of before this session started around co-pilots and things like that. But let me ask this question just to kind of get us engaged and start kind of framing what we want to talk about today. How many in your organization? Remember, I talked about over the past year, people are developing their own, waiting for Microsoft or whoever to come out with these super simple, easy co-pilots. How many have developed their own? Just a few. So what have you developed your own Copilot for? Confidential data. So you're using your own data. Is that for a specific department, or is that just for kind of for the whole company? Okay. Okay, and that is with the OpenAI ChatGPT version. Have you looked at the Azure OpenAI stuff and considered? Not yet. Is that something you're thinking about? Yeah. Are you a developer? Okay, perfect. Okay. All right. I was going to go down that whole route about, hey, he's a developer. What do you think about security? Because, yeah, there you go. Right, right. And over here, we had a couple hands. Yeah. That's what I like is some security tooling. AI development.
Can we maybe expand the question? Is that how many of you are planning to develop anything related to generative AI in the next year?
Okay, so we have a few. Is it similar to what these other ones have developed already? Is it specific to? Are you doing specific departments? Is it for across the org, or are you very specific about who gets access to these things? Okay. Yeah. Very good.
Sorry. I was going to ask, what are the top challenges that you see at the moment in terms of security? Not only the folks that already implemented, but the ones that are starting a bit now. What do you see the biggest problems that you?
And people on the chat, feel free to post on the chat online too.
Yeah, I'm gonna start walking around. You're gonna have to speak into the mic. Sorry.
Yeah. So we actually are a power generation company.
Pass the Mac.
Yeah.
People on the chat can't hear us. I'll
Yeah,
monitor
okay.
the chat.
A power generation company where we actually compete on the market, but at the same time, there's only so much data out there to actually learn from when it comes to preventive maintenance, increased capacity. So we've actually created a research institute of multiple hydropower companies across the world to put our data together. But we have to actually keep whose data it is away from each other. So we don't know whose data it is, but we can see the data and what it's happening with it. So how do we keep the security of that while also going to large language models, generative AI? So
Did you have? No. Oh, we got something back here. I'll be the Jerry Springer. Just don't throw a chair at me. How about that? There you go.
I do a lot in the GCC high space. So what is your guys' plan for combining of multiple documents and that turning into like CUI or ITAR or classified or top secret? Because generative AI combines all of those, and then all of a sudden now it's secret, but separated it's not. So what's the plan to secure that?
So if you saw the session today with the purview, that's exactly if you label your data, then if you saw the Copilot, now the Copilot will inherit the sensitivity label. So if one of the documents was confidential, the whole response is confidential. So that's the organization policy. You need to set that. If that's the case, you still need to label the data as separate if you consolidate it into a Copilot as confidential.
Can I just double click on that one real quick? So if in your organization a document is created with all of those components together, how are you classifying that today, or is that not a program to classify it? Because what I'm thinking is if there is a framework that you use today, with Purview, you could do things like exact data match and use trainable classifiers and other technologies that can probably stitch together those things.
Yeah, today it's a huge problem everywhere across the whole DIB. It's just an issue, but usually right now it's just each user is responsible for knowing its CUI or ITAR just individually. But if they can use generative AI to pull from 500 documents, then now it's controlled unclassified information. Like a bunch of PII put together with addresses and things like that that are labeled as PII, now there should be labeled as CUI, completely separate. So that's the issue with generative AI, at least for the DIB.
Understood. Yeah. I'll take that feedback in, share that with the Purview team, make sure that we're, if we don't have a roadmap for that, that's surfaced up.
Got a question over here or comment.
Yeah, so this AI thing, right? Last 3-4 years, it moved forward so rapidly. And I'm sure there are frameworks being established. All of us are learning, developing the maturity. I would love to understand those who are developing like own custom models. Are there any frameworks they're following to like bias, right? Responsible AI, any geographical boundary data, right? So I would love to understand if they are investing in that, like Microsoft, I'm sure they have their own like army, right, to focus on all those. But those who are developing custom models, I would love to get some input what practice they follow.
So I think we got a number of interesting questions. So before we all forget them, let's go back a bit. You asked about poisoning of the data. So let's start with that. Are you worried about poisoning the training data for the LLMs or for your own app, or poisoning the fine-tuning data, the grounding data? What's your biggest worry?
I think the biggest concern is what type of controls are in place for, I guess, for one reason, if that were to occur, how do you recover from it? Because that's kind of a scary circumstance. And I'm just kind of wondering what guardrails are in place around that as we, build our own models out and things like that. So.
That's a great question. So I maybe I'll start with two answers, and I'm sure that the others will have more to add. First of all, anything that you have currently in terms of fine tuning and grounding data, should be protected by the products that are protecting currently your repositories, right? So for instance, if you have Microsoft Defender for Cloud for protecting your storage, that should be part of that protection as well, right? So we just need to make sure, the company needs to make sure that all the assets that you're going to use as part of your AI stack are covered by that protection of the assets that you currently have in your organization, right? If and when that somehow got seems converted somehow, then you always have these classifiers that we are going to develop, third party are going to develop, like that will actually at least attempt to identify either poison data to maybe hallucination, maybe to wrong data. You always need that to make sure that you are overseeing the data and making sure that you have that human in the loop. But anyway, the classifications and the detections that we are going to put in place should address that. Of course, not entirely, but should start to address that. Let me say that. Okay.
So also consider, right, if we look at, like zero trust or potentially kind of a security framework, right? So as you're developing your own stuff, if you apply kind of the basics, right, go back to the basics. You have to have secure code, right? So that code has to be secure. The data then has to be secure. And think about those mechanisms and tools that you have now, and potentially you might need to secure that stuff. And then also, and put those in place if you don't have them, obviously. And then access. Access is like the key thing, right? So who has access to that data first? Obviously, when you think about security and threat actors, they're always trying to find that little chink in the armor, trying to get into that, that little scenario and try to figure out how to get your data. But if you go back to the basics and just apply those secure policies in the first place, now all you have to do is look at the outliers. All of the activities for what you're talking about, it's going to be recorded somewhere. There's an audit log. And as long as you have those tools and mechanisms in place to look through those audit logs and pull out those outliers, you're at least going to know about it, right? And know about it, hopefully, in real time. So.
Yeah, and if you're developing your own, like the question before, we have tools like Azure Content Safety and the new Azure AI evaluation that was released this at Ignite. So there are tools, the same tools that we're using, we also enable you to use when you're developing your own. So all the responsible AI, all the content safety, jailbreak, classifier, stuff like that are available for you to consume while you're developing your own in Azure AI Studio.
Yeah, and then another thing, if you're using ChatGPT, the OpenAI version, I'm familiar with it. I mean, I actually buy the API myself because I like to see what it does. But one of the things that we've done at Microsoft, we're trying to approach this from, she mentioned responsible AI. I love that. We talk about responsible AI and we talk about security of AI, but it's really safe AI, right? And so we're trying to help. From an Azure perspective, we know how to secure Azure, right? You have the RBAC, you have all the policies and things in place. Azure OpenAI utilizes Azure and those components of security. So if you're using the Azure stack for OpenAI, then you're ahead of the game because you can control that access. You can control access to that data, and of course some other things for the code and stuff like that. They were talking about Defender for Cloud today and the Defender for API, and you mentioned the storage. So there's some really cool mechanisms already there that you can take advantage of for that capability. So, but then there's the question, how do you recover? Well, yeah, it's something that everybody kind of has to figure out how you recover, but you just have to put the basics in place first.
And we have a question on the chat.
Oh, we do?
We do. So somebody asking, is Microsoft baking in any stopgap to prevent an organization from opening their data to external generative AI? Require purview configuration before something can be enabled. So I think.
Can you repeat the question one more time?
Is Microsoft baking in any stopgap to prevent organization from opening their data to external generative AI? Require purview configuration before something can be enabled and apps can be enabled in my organization?
That's a loaded question. Piggyback to the session that we just did on on room 420 an hour ago. There are several things from a data perspective that you can do today. It starts with data classification, data labeling. Very important to not stop at just the label, but also enforce encryption. Because with encryption, that's the first level of protection. Because once you encrypt the data, doesn't matter who's trying to open it, if that application, API call, or person doesn't have the keys, they can't open it, right? And then there's other fences that you can put in place where the data is. Is it in SharePoint? SharePoint, you have access to also put some controls in place. And then there is another aspect of that. So I think the purview side, which is labeling, classifying, using auto labeling, because that helps alleviate the burden on the user side. And the other side of that is when you look at applications that have access to your data, then it becomes more of a governance around the apps that can do that. So we know that some customers and some tenants don't have any restrictions. They just basically it's an open door for users to register and consent to applications, specifically OAuth applications that can read their calendar. Maybe the application can read their mailbox. Other customers decided that that's not okay. Everything has to go through IT. So that's another gate that you can probably implement. So you can restrict which applications can be registered and can really have access and keys, API keys to access customer data in the tenant. So there are several things that you can do that in terms of Entra ID, or aka Azure Active Directory, to block, prevent, monitor. The product that I work with has a component called app governance, which can not only detect applications that are registered that maybe it's a malicious application that is accessing sensitive information and customer data, but it also can, again, back to the labeling and purview, Defender for Cloud Apps. When an application is registered in Azure AD and it starts to read sensitive data, we can track that down and show you in the portal, in the dashboard, you have these applications that are accessing X amount of data that's sensitive, right? But again, going to first principles, that only happened because maybe there was a poor hygiene allowing any applications to be added and consented in the environment, right? So you have always to take this step and defense in that, right? Start with labeling and purview, hygiene on your Azure Active Directory, Entra ID. Make sure that you clean up those applications that are not supposed to be there. Put controls. Maybe users are not supposed to consent to applications at all, right? And then there's another area that's a little bit out of my depth, which is what about maybe you have developers developing code that is connecting and injecting these API calls within the code, and you don't trust the source of that API or the destination, right? So that's another hygiene that you have to take care in the developing world, like doing code scanning and making sure that you're trying to be proactive about developers that are kind of being creative, and that's in a different ballgame.
Well, and I think it goes back to the old discussion and argument. If we just had secure code, if developers, this is what I was trying to get to earlier. If we just had secure code, if our developers would just develop securely, we wouldn't need Defender. We wouldn't need all these tools, would we? But that's never going to happen. So yeah, that's why we need to put these things in place. I got him back here. I don't want to skip your question. Could you repeat it? Sorry.
Yeah, but just to what you mentioned, right, about third-party apps and APIs, where they need read permission even, right? Sometimes it could be high sensitive data, but read permission, right? So, well, like if business needs it, right? How do you protect that, right? Do we not to just refuse it, or like what do you suggest?
So if there is a legitimate use case for like a business or a partner application to access your data, I think it becomes a bit to your point earlier. You to some extent you have to trust that partner, right? Not everything will be labeled, and we know that it's hard to basically audit everything that the application is doing. We're providing some of that, like I said, if this application is registered and with the API tokens, they can pull data from Office 365. We have solutions for that today, right? Now, if this application is just have an API to another application, then that becomes a different problem, right? And that's a little bit out of my depth. Like I said, it's not. I focus very, very, very much on the Office and Microsoft and Defender for Cloud apps, not so much on the Azure types of applications.
Yeah, we had a discussion about that yesterday, similar discussion, but there is that responsibility model, right? So while we provide a lot of tools to help our customers with their own internal apps and with their own development and the APIs and stuff like that, there is kind of a balance to what you have to do to make sure that your environment is secure to start with. And then there's the other things that we do from a responsibility model to help you along the way. There's a great slide that Richard had yesterday. Maybe that's something we can share a little bit later. I think there's a link potentially for that as well that you can kind of take a look at. But that's something you really need to think about as you're doing this, right? Yeah, Azure is going to give you that first step. Yeah, we have Purview. Yeah, we have Defender for Cloud Apps and the Defender for API stuff, but that only takes you so far. Every organization, every environment is going to be, it could be the same industry, 100% different of how you utilize and access data and what the profile of your organization looks like, which boils down to how your users access that data or need access to that type of data. So you have to kind of take that into perspective, look at the responsibility model. These are the things that I have to focus on. And then for these other things, this is where I need to deploy technology to secure my environment and secure that AI. Go ahead.
Just to add to that, in the last many years, right, we invested quite a bit in secured code and training developers how to write secure code and so on. If the promise of AI is going to happen really, then almost every information worker in the organization will be able to write code now, right? So we need to start looking, all of us need to start looking more and more into validation and verification of whatever is developed. In addition to, of course, we need to continue to make sure that we educate about securing the code. But the validation and verification becomes critical now because you won't be able to reach all of the population that is going to create new value now. And you already saw in all of these sessions today and yesterday that we are investing quite a bit in that. And we did that oversight that we do in everything that is Copilot, of course, is part of that. But you're going to see us more and more investing into that moving forward.
So I have a question, a little bit different. I work in incident response. So with the generation of, continued escalation of AI, we've seen Worm GPT, those type of things. What in your opinion is the concern where bad actors are using AI to go from CV to POC to weaponized, exploits, and how is it going to impact the security community?
Do you have a slide for that? I thought maybe you did.
We have a nice slide Neta is going to show that in terms of
we came prepared. We'll just yeah.
Thank you for that question. Yeah. The one that shows the new threats that are specific for generative AI. And I
not that answers everything, but that's pretty. Yeah.
Look at the colors. Yeah. So as you can see, there's a number of different layers. In general, when we talk about generative AI, we look at that in terms of how do you secure the applications themselves? How do you secure the usage of these applications? And of course, how do you secure the fundamentals, right? If you're using Copilot or one of our LLMs, that layer of fundamentals models is something that we take care of. And we have tons of people in Microsoft that are doing that. But what about the layers above, right? And that was the question before that about you are developing applications now in your organization. How do you secure that? And these are more or less the new type of threats that we see. That's before that they were in existing, right? So prompt injection being the top one, right? UPA stands for direct prompt injection, XPA for indirect prompt injection. But basically, prompt injections is the new surface of threats that we're seeing here. And there are tons of variants of that, right? There's the over-reliance that on the extended risks, right? Or excessive agency. You're providing too much power to that specific application.
Well, and I don't think that's really where I'm going with this. So, have you heard of Worm GPT? It's basically this, malicious AI. So how is it that it's going to impact the security community when, threat actors are able to use AI to, okay, CV got released today. We went from POC to weaponized within a day by using AI to do that. How is it that, that's going to impact the security community?
Again, I don't think that any one of us have a very, very clear answer on that because it's still early days, right? But one thing is clear, and we heard that today in Charlie's and Vasu's discussion initial. Clearly, we can react much faster with copilots, right? So yes, the attackers will have all of these tools to attack faster, but we definitely have better ways to react faster as well, right? So time will tell. We'll get better, and we are all in security in this room, so I assume that we'll all sit together. But definitely we have a chance now. So far, as you know, the bad actors were always very much organized and they're very collaborative. Our industry of securing that, not so much, right? We have a chance now to change that, and hopefully it will work.
Yeah, and if you saw the blogs and all the announcement today, that's exactly the security in the era of AI. That's why all the things are changing. The generative AI it's not deterministic. You can do new things with it. It works a lot faster. So both the security itself is advancing and the hackers are advancing.
And I think I got a question here, but also I don't think we've talked about this week at Ignite, and I don't think we've talked about it in our blogs. I know we've talked about it before over the past several weeks and before that, but we have specific teams at Microsoft, MSRC, our red teams that are constantly looking at this stuff. Remember I said I've been working on this for like a year? We started this discussion like a year ago on all of this stuff. We have specific teams, really good teams at Microsoft that are always red teaming this stuff. Even the stuff that we produce internally, and hopefully one day you all see it, they are hammering on this stuff constantly. So they do see those things, those threats that you might see. Hopefully we have some mechanisms in place to stop those before, the public sees them. I have one question down here, and then I'll go that way.
Hi, what kind of tooling does there exist, if any, to stop like the two bottom bars on that threat map? I think a lot has been talked, during this conference about the top area and different products you have to deal with that. But what can we do at the application and the AI platform level to prevent those threats?
When building your own models?
Pardon?
When building your own models?
When you're building your own models, yeah.
So basically, if you use Azure ML and the Azure Content Safety and Evaluation, we give you the tools within. So a lot of that is already secured with the Azure Security Platform. Then we give you all the jailbreaks, all the responsible AI on top of it, all of things within the Azure platform. That's exactly where the Azure platform shines with security.
And it includes that middle bar too, then? That's protected as well. There's for prompt injection, data leak, insecure plugin design, things like that is also.
So it includes, let's say, the new content safety has a jailbreak. So for prompt injection and stuff like that, there's a new classifier for jailbreak. There's evaluations. There's additional, all the regular security if you scan your data and things like that. Yeah, but you need to do the threat modeling. So most important for us to start with is the threat modeling. Also, if we look at
threat modeling and data classification are essential.
At the application that you build, we have. It moves to all slides, or on my slide, it moves to all parts. Would be nice to see. Mine shows all. No chance? Oh, well. Nice diagram does not display. Okay, forget about the diagram. In general, we see there is the layer of securing the model, securing the LLM. There's the layer of securing the applications. You need to look at all the vulnerability points, the points on the model, the points on the application, the points where you connect to the data, all the current security you need to keep in place and add additional like jailbreak classifiers, responsible AI, content safety, all of that when looking at it. Red teaming your application before releasing it, and making sure the developer validated. So there's best practices too. For example, limiting the size of the token, limiting the size of the response, limiting the number of responses that you can give a user to do. So there's a lot of best practices that you can implement to prevent some of the stuff. Doesn't matter, it won't show up. Oh well.
It's so cool. You'll love this slide.
You will, but it shows only the top part.
All right, we have.
Here, Andi wants to.
Just one additional comment. We'll get in a second to a slide. We are working on enhancing our posture management in our Microsoft Defender for Cloud. And we are looking for design partners on that. So in a second, you'll see a slide regarding that. That will probably provide a much better answer to what you're looking for. So
I'll put that slide on that we are looking for design partners. So if you want to sign up, this is the time.
So I'm going this way. All right, scan that.
So less of a question, more of a comment on the previous question about the impact of generative AI on our security threats. Generative AI gives us the ability to raise that threshold of lower the skill level to get into being an attacker. The ability to generate the code and all that stuff. So we have more people coming in able to do basic attacks, but it doesn't raise the ceiling any. So it seems like it opens up more potential for insider threat for disgruntled employees, things like that. But our existing tools are able to catch those things. So I don't know that it's really adding that much. It just means we have a lot more noise we've got to filter through.
And you need to hire better people.
So my question is, as a security organization, right, for a large company, how do you build a security program around AI security? So I know we can secure data, we can detect stuff, we can react to it and all of that, but how do you build a security program for this specific service, right? You can do that for VMs or storage or whatever. There's a million recommendations in security on how to do it, but I'm looking anywhere online and I'm trying to build that for my company, and I can't find a lot of information on building the program itself.
Step one, sign up for the design part.
And to be honest, this is some things that we've been working on for like the last year. Recommendations, messaging, and it's starting to trickle out because we're starting to become more comfortable about what we have and that it's going to be valuable to customers. So look for that, right? So I was talking about the responsibility model we have for AI. We have that for Azure and all of our other services too, but now it's been applied to AI. So that's out there, but we're starting to get the rest of it out there. So look for that. There's also a series called Must Learn AI Security. If you go to aka.ms/mustlearnai security, you can utilize that to help start to build your internal knowledge around these security issues with AI, I guess. Yeah. Yeah. Yes.
Stay tuned.
Yeah.
So that program, without sounding like a broken record, that program that you see there is exactly trying to address all these life cycle of applications and build that program, starting from the development phase, helping the developers or the information workers in this case, developing a more secure and validating that whatever that code becomes more secure, And then in the deployment phase, helping the SecOps, ensuring that the policies are defined, as well as at the last stage in operations, making sure that we have the right detections in place. All of that is something that we are starting to address now. Please sign up.
Yeah, work in progress. Maybe we should have just brought that slide and drop thing. I don't know. That's it.
Huh?
That's the
I
slide.
know that we started Ignite today with giving you controls and the user interaction, which data goes into AI, how can you block application in AI. That part was the main pain point we heard from customers. How do I protect my data? How do I protect my organization? How do I see what's happening in my organization? That was all the announcement that we made today.
I have another question. What exactly gets logged with Copilot, right? Is it all prompts and responses, and where does that go, right? Because if it's reasoning over confidential data, right, and then all of the prompts and generative AI responses are now confidential, and that gets sent to another team, how does that work?
In general, your data is your data. So our copilots do not send the data from place to place. It's your data. But if you want to elaborate.
Yeah, I think that's the first principle. Whatever happens in your tenant, it's your data. It's stay there and doesn't leave, right? I think from all of the keynotes that I saw today, that I think was in yesterday, that was super crystal clear that especially when you're using Microsoft Copilot, nothing changes from a compliance standpoint, from regulatory standpoint. We adhere to the same standards that we always had. So nothing changes from perspective that, okay, now I'm running Copilot in my environment. Should I be worried about that? I don't think from a compliance standpoint that should be the case, right?
Well, yeah, I get that, like, you own it, it's in your tenant, but certain people in your org can see it and others cannot. It's kind of what I'm getting at, right? Like, say you have foreign nationals in your tenant and US citizens, they can not see certain data, but if they're generating things that they shouldn't see and it's logged, what is actually logged? Is it everything
so
that's
the
generated?
logging, the logging, the auditing piece, I think, to answer your question, to my knowledge, it's associated to, so we did demo that in the session earlier today, where like there are audit logs that audits all the chat's interactions with Copilot, and then if but you don't see that right away, so it's encrypted and it's in your tenant. Now, if you have a case where you would need to investigate, then eDiscovery can kind of take the lid off, and you can see the information that was transfer between the user and the prompt, right? So you see the user prompt and you see the response, right? But there's a secondary question that I caught there. That is, what if a user is trying to inquire the Copilot for a data that the user doesn't have access to? And then it goes back to first principles, where if the data is properly protected and fenced, and there's several ways you can do that, from labeling to permissioning, et cetera, Copilot will not expose that information to a user that is not authorized to see that data.
I see the hands. I'm sorry. I wish these things were longer. These only last 45 minutes, and we're like right at the end of it. Doesn't that stink, right? Maybe that's some good feedback. Maybe next time these should be a little bit longer. I apologize, but we have other folks coming in and stuff like that. If you have those questions, I was going to ask, yes, please put the slide back up. There you go. Please scan that. Please join this for your organization. And if you do have additional questions, let's just not let the discussion stop here. Let's take it offline. We can talk afterwards and things like that, or even after the conference. I'm always available to talk. Dylan knows that. Just rod.trent@microsoft.com. My inbox fills up. That's just fine if you have questions, okay? Thank you so much, everyone.
Thank you.